Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Angela. I keep saying that I'm going to do better about this. Someone suggested that I do my intros a little differently, and I thought the way that she explained it made total sense. So I'm going to attempt to do that. My name is Angela. Welcome to my channel. I have another channel here on YouTube called The Scattered Nest, where we do like family vlogs and things like that. But this channel is like my personal channel. It's for whatever is in here that I want to share with you guys. So subscribe. Sometimes we do makeup videos. Sometimes we talk about books and podcasts, and other times we talk about just random products or fashion things or whatever. You know, it's just my place for whatever's in here to come out. So I really enjoy having this channel, and I feel I'm always myself, but I feel like I can be even more myself here because it's not a family channel where I have to be like worried that my kids are watching it or whatever, if that makes any sense. So today I've got my coffee and we're going to get into it because I just spit, but also if you are not subscribed on This Gathered Nest, then you would not know this news yet. But you guys know that for the past year and a half, I have been writing a book, and I am so excited to share with you guys that my book was purchased by a publisher and is being published. I still have to like pinch myself to remind myself that like it's real and that it's really happening. My book is being published by Harper One, which is an imprint of HarperCollins. And so it's just, I don't even know where to begin, you guys. Like if you would have told me, certainly when I was a small child and struggling in school, if you would have told me then, but especially even just in the last like 5 to 10 years, like if you would have told me that one day I was going to write a book and HarperCollins was going to publish it, I probably would have laughed in your face. So I want to share with you guys though, because things like this, people share these kind of like amazing things that happen to them, right? This like incredible news. And then sometimes it leaves you on the other end, or myself at various times, feeling like, oh man, like I wish that would like happen to me, or I wonder how they did that, or it must be because of this. People make a lot of assumptions about how you ended up where you are. And really for me, what I wanted to share with you guys today is the story of this book and how I was able to land a book deal for my very first book. A lot of times in the publishing world now, you have to self-publish and do all kinds of other things and then prove that you can sell books and all this stuff. So I want to share with you the story because it's not as cut and dry, and it certainly wasn't a perfectly easy, smooth road to get here. And I think that the whole story is worth sharing and worth understanding, especially if you're somebody that has a desire and a dream to write a book, and maybe like me, you were told no. And so you need to hear the other end of it. You need to hear that sometimes not taking no for an answer is really the best thing. And that also sometimes that no can lead to something even better. We say that all the time. It's sort of like one of those platitudes, like sometimes this door closes so another one can open. And you know, we get it. We get that that's like probably absolutely possible, but it feels really hard to apply it to ourselves and our situations. So I wanted to share with you my story because that is exactly it. This is a story of being told no and not taking no for an answer, and how it ended up bringing me to this incredible place and giving me something even better. So let me start with basically a year and a half ago, even more than that. That's a lie. We're going to start even farther than that. Back in 2016, I posted a video talking about our adoption of Noah, our son Noah, talking about my story and being in the Congo. And I jokingly said in that video, like, there's so much I could tell you, I could write a book. And then I think I said something about how like maybe one day I will, or I'd like to write a book. Like I mentioned it in that video. You guys, a lot of you who, if you're watching me now, maybe you're new, but there were quite a few people in that video that were like, I would love it if you would write a book. Would you please write a book? Like I would love to know more about this story. I would love to know more about just your family and your whole story, things that, you know, can't fit into the confines of a video. And I started thinking about it because I always thought, like everyone else, there's nothing special about me or my story. Like I'm not going to write a book. That's dumb. But I really started thinking about it, and I felt like, you know, I've joked around about it for so long. And the truth is that like 75% of what we say in joking, we really mean. And I think that that gave me permission almost to say, you know what, I do really want to write a book. Like I do really want to do this. So I kind of didn't know what to do with it from there, though. I just kind of like said it, but then it was like, well, I don't really know what to do with it from here. And then I was pregnant with twins and sick, and I wasn't thinking about anything, but was I going to be able to keep my food down? But towards the end of my pregnancy with the twins, I got an email one day, and it basically said like, hey, I work for a publisher, and I saw your video about maybe being interested in writing a book. Are you still interested? Do you want to talk? And I was like, well, this is probably crap. This lady's probably full of it. It should be said again, like when you do YouTube, especially like when it's your job and when you get emails all the time from people, and sometimes it's crap and sometimes it's not. Like I told you guys, the guy emailed me from People Magazine about a feature, and I deleted his email because I thought, well, there's no way that's real. And then it turns out it was. Same thing with this. I thought there's no way that's real. And, but I responded this time. I did not delete it. I responded, and I ended up getting on a conference call with this lovely young lady and someone else that she worked with. And we talked through sort of what would my book be about. It would be a memoir, how, you know, that kind of thing. And they gave me a little direction about like, just send us a chapter and then maybe we'll kind of help you put together like a proposal, because with a book you usually put together a proposal. I didn't know anything. And they just said, send us a sample chapter and basically like, we'll help. They said, take your time. We know you're pregnant with twins. Take your time. Well, I thought I really wanted to have that sample chapter to them before the twins were born. But the rest of the month, the last few weeks of my twin pregnancy was rough, was not feeling good at all. And it was just, I was not in a headspace to write. And so I didn't. And then a few months after they were born, I think she emailed me again and said, hey, have you had a chance to work on that sample chapter? And I thought like, I was putting it off. I'm not even going to like stay here and pretend like I was not putting it off. I was putting it off because I just didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know where to start. And so I kept putting it off, and then I got that email and I thought, okay, well, I got to do this. So I literally told my husband, give me a couple days. He watched the kids. He was on paternity leave. He watched the kids for a few days. Obviously, I still helped with the babies. But he took care of the other kids and everything for a few days. And I just sat at my desk and slapped out a chapter. She said, don't start at the beginning. Just pick what would be the most interesting, or you think would be the most interesting, or whatever. So I picked sort of a chapter in my story to write about, and I just wrote it out. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know how to weave together a good story, but I also didn't know what I didn't know. I just thought, okay, well, let me just tell the story. Let me just tell it like I would tell you. Let me just sit down and write it out. So I did that, and I nervously and anxiously sent it back to her. And I will be 100% honest with you guys, because I think that even if it makes me look bad, it's worth just being honest. Because of the way YouTube works and how I was used to things going when companies would reach out to me about things and stuff like that, I am not going to lie. I'm just going to tell you that I don't want to say the name of the publisher, but they were a big publisher. And I basically got the impression that maybe it almost didn't even matter what I wrote, that they would buy the book. Because I had an audience, and that's really what publishers care about, at least in my mind, was like they had needed somebody to buy the book. I basically have a built-in audience to buy the book. So even if I'm not a great writer, they'll still buy it because hopefully my people will want to buy it. You know what I mean? Like that was truly how I felt about it. Like I wasn't confident in the sense that like I know this is going to happen, but I felt pretty good that like it would probably happen. Maybe they would tell me I needed to work on some things or whatever, but that, you know, it would probably happen. And a few months went by and I didn't hear anything. And all the research I'd done online said that this part of the process can take a really long time, that book publishing is a really long process. And so I just kept telling myself that. And I kept saying, like, I'm not going to bug her until after the first of the year, First of the year 2018 rolled around. And I think I sent a follow-up email, basically like, hey, just checking in, that kind of thing. And I remembered reading about how like people would get advances for books and stuff like that. And I honestly thought like, you don't have to pay me in advance, just publish my book. Like, I don't even care about that. Just publish my book. And the response email I got, it was like I want to say it was in January or February. It's hard for me to remember that specific about the date because I just remember what happened. It was January or February, and I got an email, and she said, I just want you to know that like, we love your family. We love your story so much. But basically that like, we think maybe you need to hire a writer, like either a ghostwriter or something like that to help you write the book. And basically what I heard was, you're a terrible writer. Your story's good, but you suck so bad that we won't even buy your book. We don't even want your book. Like, we won't even take it from you for free. We don't even want your book. She was very nice. I'm reading a lot in between the lines there, but the gist was that the writing just wasn't there. And I am not ashamed to tell you that I was devastated. I came up to my bathroom, was on the bathroom floor, crying my eyes out. Here's this thing that had become this dream, something I didn't even know to dream for myself, was now a dream that I wanted so desperately. And I was being told no. And also, it's not like, okay, your time was too slow in running this race to qualify. You need to speed up your time. That's something that's very easy to quantify, that you know you need to practice these sprints to be a better sprinter. Writing is kind of like, okay, well, I don't really know how to fix that. I don't know what's wrong with it, so I don't know how to fix it. I asked for a little more insight. She really wasn't able to say much else. So I just felt like, okay, I just was on the bathroom floor, literally just crying like, well, that's it. This dream is dead. And I remember my husband came in the bathroom and he, of course, was comforting, but he also was kind of like, are you really going to let this like completely derail you? And I was looking at him like, yes, of course I am. Like, one of the big publishers just told me no. They just told me basically that I suck and they don't want my book. And he was like, but there's lots of other publishers, or you can publish it yourself. Like, do you have the story you want to share with the world? Are you going to let this person telling you no be the reason that you don't do that? And I was kind of like, I was pouting. Like, I'm not going to lie, I was pouting. I was like, I don't care what this guy has to say. I know he has my best interest at heart, but he's just annoying me right now. And so we talked through it, and finally I was like, got that like grit feeling where I was like, okay, you're right. I have this story. I have this story in my heart that I want to share, and that I believe, not for self-gratification, but that I believe will help other people. And I really just felt like, okay, you're right. I'm not going to give up. So from the bathroom floor, I Googled writing classes. I was like, okay, well, the next step is I've got to figure out how to write. So I'm going to take a writing class. And I found that there was a writing class that met on Wednesday afternoons at 2:00 at a local church. And it was actually a writing class about writing a memoir. And I thought, well, what a perfect dilly dang class for me to take. So my husband agreed to come home from work early on Wednesdays so that I could attend this class. I went to it. I'm not going to lie, it did not turn out to be exactly what I had hoped. It wasn't really the type of writing help that I needed. It was a lot for like an older generation wanting to write down their family stories and print them in a book to pass down. You know what I mean? Like how your grandparents tell you family stories and that kind of thing. So it wasn't entirely what I needed. But I did get lots of great information, and really, if nothing else, that served to help me realize that, number one, the hope wasn't gone. The dream wasn't dead. I could get better. I didn't know how to quantify what being a better writer would look like, but I knew I could do it. And I knew that everything I've ever wanted and desired in life, that I have set my mind to, and that I have prayed on and asked God to help me with, He has always delivered. And so I felt like this is no different. Just because I don't have an exact way to quantify it, I know that if this is meant to be part of my story, that God will bring the pieces together to allow this to happen. And so I was, again, taking that class, working on things, doing some research about writing and trying to understand what makes a story good, what makes a book good, that kind of thing. And one day I was listening to podcasts. You guys know I love podcasts. And at that time I was really into like business development type things and listening to podcast related to that. And so one of my favorite podcasts to listen to is called The Influencer Podcast with Julie Solomon. And she basically just does all kinds of stuff about being an influencer and as a job and like how you can sort of navigate the business side of it. But I saw that she had an episode with a literary agent about landing a book deal. And I thought, well, let me listen to this. This is clearly going to help me. And this woman that she was interviewing, her name was Jennifer Smith. And she shared her story. She used to work for one of the big publishers in publicity, and now she owned her own literary agency called Spin Literary. And she started talking about like what you need in place to be able to get a book deal. And everything that she was saying were all boxes I could check. I was like, yes, I've got that. I've got that. I've done this. I've done that. Like I had all of those things. And she said at the end of her interview that basically like if someone felt like they were at that place where they were ready to do more and to take the next step, that they could absolutely reach out to her. So I was like, okay, all right. I was very nervous because I thought for sure when I tell her what's happened, she's going to be like, well, then never mind. I don't want to work with you. But I sent her an email anyways. She lives in Australia. It took a few days for her to respond, and I think maybe a day or two. And she responded and basically said like, yeah, let's chat. Like I sent her like all the information about sort of what I had wanted to do and all of that stuff, why I felt like I was at a place where this would be a good thing for both me and for my audience wanting to read it. So she said, okay, let's get on a call. So we scheduled a call. And basically, she just asked me a bunch of questions again about myself, my story, my purpose in writing this book, why I wanted to do it. Because, sometimes people, if you are like a fitness influencer or whatever, you might write a book because your audience really needs a place to find the information. Like there's lots of different reasons that people write books. So she really wanted to understand the heart behind it, why I wanted to do it. Because obviously that makes a big difference in longevity of being able to stick with something. And I told her everything. And turns out that she used to work at the agency, at the publisher where I was turned down. And I thought, oh God, when I tell her this, she's going to be like, I'm not working with this lady. But she went through my story. She listened to everything. We talked, and she ended up getting back with me and saying like, yes, I think you have something here and I'm willing to work with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I actually have I'm going to have like a literary agent. And so one of the services that she offers is helping you to sort of like a writing coach. So she helps you go through your story and pull out the important pieces and get a bones of an outline together, because you need an outline. Like what's the purpose of this book? What are the chapters going to be? All that kind of stuff. So we had weekly calls for like 8 weeks, I think, 6 weeks or 8 weeks. We had weekly calls. It was like every Thursday night after my kids went to bed, because she was in Australia, so the time zone was different. We would get on the phone and I would share with her pieces of my story, and she would take notes and go through all of it. And then at the end, one of our last ones was to go through and turn that into sort of an outline, bones, structure for the book. And then she helped me figure out what my like introduction needed to be about, how I needed to break that up. And then she said during the process, I was writing. While we were doing this, I was writing. And once I started like talking with her and talking through the story and having someone to sort of bounce it off of, things started becoming a little more clear. And I remember one night I woke up, it was like 2:00 in the morning, and the words were just like here and they needed to come out. I just couldn't leave them in my brain anymore. So I sat down and wrote out like the entire introduction chapter in the middle of the night. Like Ciara was sleeping, the babies were sleeping, all the kids were sleeping. And I just sat there and typed it out. Like I couldn't stop the words. It was what I called like inspired writing. That doesn't always happen. And then it was like halfway through our calls, I sent it to her and was like, okay, here's what I got. And she called on our next call. She was like, Angela, it's good. It's good. And she said, it made her cry, and she was really encouraging, very encouraging. And so we went through, kept going. I sent her another chapter as I started working on the book. I sent her more to look at. And then basically she said, okay, she's like, call me back when you have like more than half of the book written. Basically that, we were going to work on a proposal and all of that piece to get it sent out to publishers, but that she really wanted me to have more than half of the book written when we did that. So that's what I did. I spent the next couple of months. We set kind of a goal for when I wanted to be done with that, when I wanted to be halfway done kind of a thing. And for the next few months, I worked on the book and got to a place where I was a little more than halfway. And then she and I worked on coming up with a proposal, finding, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into writing your book proposal. You have to share a lot of things. Like, do you have an audience to buy the book? Because of course they hope the book will sell outside of your audience, but you do need to bring something to the table for the publisher. And, are they compelled by your story? Like, all that kind of stuff. So we worked on that. We worked on the proposal, got all of that, the pieces of that together, pulled the sample. We sent the introduction and a sample chapter to them as sort of like part of the proposal package. And she basically said like, okay, all this stuff is done. I'm going to start sending it out to publishers and I'll get back with you. And I figured, okay, well, last time this took months to hear back, so it'll probably take months again. And I just kind of like put it out of my mind. Well, it was only like a few days or a week later when she wrote me back and said, well, what's your availability for publisher calls? And I was like, well, what do you mean? What are publisher calls? And she's like, well, when you have multiple publishers interested in your book, you usually take publisher calls. And that's a chance for you to talk to them and them to talk to you and to get to know each other and see how you jive. And they're going to ask you some more questions and you get to ask them questions about what they have to offer. And then at the end, they all make their best offer for buying your book. And I was like, wait a minute, are you trying to tell me that like multiple publishers want to buy my book? Like not just one? Thought like, you're telling me someone's actually interested? And she was like, yes, yeah. And I mean, I'm not even like, I could cry talking about it right now. Like I was just like, are you kidding me? Like this other publisher said no. And now they were back on the list, by the way, of people who were interested in buying the book. I could not believe it. Like could not believe it. So the next week I had 5 or 6 publisher calls where I talked to someone from, like I talked to the editors, so whoever would be editing my book, and then usually someone from their marketing and publicity and stuff would get on and we talk through everything. And I have to say that I loved every single one of them. There wasn't one that I was like, oh no, these people, I would never let them publish my book. They were all amazing. And it actually became very hard to choose, but there was one that the editor that I spoke to, I just really, really jibed with her. Like when I was explaining to her the message and the heart behind my book and what I want people to take away from it and my story, she was just like, yes, and this and that, and yeah, and this. And I felt like she really got me. And that's so important because, editors have a lot of power and they are incredibly important in the book writing process and helping you bring your thoughts together in a way that makes sense and in a book that is readable. And so I really wanted an editor that I jived with. And there was one publisher in particular that I really had hoped, like initially when this all started and I said like my big dream is that this publisher be the one to publish my book. And I spoke with them. They were on the list of people that wanted to publish my book and they made me an offer. And I ended up not going with them because the editor at this other publisher, I just fell in love with her. So the day came, she said basically like, okay, now you've had all your calls. Everyone has. She gave them a deadline until like next Friday at this time to put in their offers, basically. And so then she called me and said, okay, here's the offers. Here's blah, blah, blah. Like, what do you want to do? And it was just the most surreal thing in the entire world. I can't, like words cannot tell you how incredibly surreal it was to not just have someone willing to publish my book, but people making me offers to publish my book, including the publisher that said no. So I didn't end up going with them, but I do still have like a very soft place in my heart for them. And for all of them, like I said, like I have friends that have published with many of those publishers. And so I felt like I couldn't go wrong. It almost felt like a dream come true. Like I couldn't go wrong no matter which one I chose. But I ended up choosing, as you guys have probably seen on Instagram and everything else, Harper One, which is an imprint of HarperCollins. And I cannot believe that I am going to have a book published by HarperCollins, by Harper One. It's incredible to me. It's almost still unbelievable. I don't think I will fully believe it until I see the book in a freaking bookstore. But yeah, so let's catch up to where we're at now. So I had a few months to finish the rest of the manuscript, and my manuscript was due on January 1st. So I sent that in, and now we are in the editorial phase. And this is the part where I work with my editor on getting everything with the book squared away and final before it goes in for like edits, as in like grammatical periods, commas, that kind of thing. And I'm so excited to be able to take you guys along for the rest of the journey. We still have to title this book. We still have to get a cover for this book. And then there will be like a whole pre-sale part of the book. I get asked this a lot. I don't know what date the book will come out. It probably will not be until 2020. publishing is a very, very, very long process, and rightfully so. They want to put out good books that are well written and everything is done correctly. So initially I was like, what? That's forever. But I've come to understand that that's just the way that publishing works. So I'm totally fine with it. And I'm really, really excited to take you guys along. And it's crazy to me that first no felt so devastating to me. So devastating. And if I had let it stop me, everything else after that would have never happened. And here that no, it was like God was saying, okay, there's memes and platitudes and things I don't like, but the one where you see Jesus and the little kid, and Jesus is asking the little kid to hand him the small teddy bear. I'm gonna cry. And behind his back, he's got the big teddy bear. And the little kid's like, but Jesus, I love it. And he doesn't know that God has something so much better for him. And that's what I feel like with this book was that like that first no hurt so much. But God was so faithful in that he had something so much better for me and for this book. Even just the book, like if I hadn't have gone through that process of being told no, like you need some help with writing, I wouldn't have gotten the help I needed to make the writing of the book even better, which makes the story even better and even better for you to read the story when it's well written. So everything I hate, like everything happens for a reason, but all these things work together for our good. That's what I will say. All of these things work together for our good. And that at the end of the day, I'm here at this place, and I could have not been if I would have let the no stop me. If I would have taken that no and said, okay, well, I'm not good enough. Like it's just never going to happen. And walked away. So I will say I have lots of moments of feeling unworthy of this. And I struggled with it for the last few months and going through the contract phase and all of that stuff with the publisher of feeling like unworthy, that imposter syndrome. I don't deserve to be here. I'm not a good enough writer. Look at the other writers they publish. My crappy book is going to sit alongside theirs. Like all of the fears and inadequacies I have struggled with for the last few months. But one thing I think is really important is that a lot of times when people talk about imposter syndrome and all of that, it's really meant to encourage you that like, no, you're enough and you're good and you're this and that. But I'm going to take a little different spin on it. And it's something that God told me one day in the car, driving, and I was praying about it and feeling unworthy. And he said, that's because you are unworthy. Jesus is the only one who's worthy of any praise at all. And so for me, this has been a labor of love and telling his story, that through me. This is God's story. This is what he has done with my life and with my family's life. And I'm just the conduit. I'm just the way in which he's getting his story out into the world. And so I think it's okay that I feel a little unworthy of this because I am. And we all are. And I think, I'm going to get on like a gospel message here for a hot second. But I think that the key to understanding and fully accepting like the love of Jesus and Jesus in our life is to know how desperately we need him and how much we mess up and how messy and destructive we are as humans and that we need him and we are unworthy of that. And that's what makes the gospel and Jesus all that much more beautiful is that we don't deserve it, but we get it anyways. And so that's kind of how I feel about this book. Like I don't deserve it, but God saw fit to make this part of my story and is using me to tell his story. And for that, I am so incredibly grateful. And I cannot wait for you guys to read this book. It's going to be a little while. There's going to be all kinds of things coming up. Like I said, I'll probably be asking some of y'all if you want to be on a book launch team and doing all kinds of things like that. But for today, I just want to celebrate the victory that is my book being published, this next step of the process, this next step of the journey that has been completed and a place I never thought I would get to, but here I am. So I hope that maybe you will find something in this video that will encourage you and inspire you, even if you are not in the place of writing a book. Maybe it's something else that you're working on, but just know that the no's don't have to be no forever. Sometimes they're just no right now, and sometimes they're no because I have something better. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a big reason why I try really hard not to question when things don't go my way. to just say, okay, this wasn't meant to be, but there's something else. So I hope you find a little encouragement in this story. And I just want to say again, a huge, giant, heartfelt thank you to you guys. I don't know how long it would have been before I would have started this journey on my own if it hadn't been for the nudging of so many of you saying, yes, please write a book. I want to read your book. Please write a book. You guys really set a lot of this in motion, and I, from the bottom of my heart, am so incredibly grateful to you for that. So please hear me say that to you today. Thank you so much. So much. I love you guys. That's it for today's video. I'll be back on Wednesday with another video. Let me know if you have any other questions. I'm going to leave links down below in the description box. If you want to find my literary agent, Jennifer at Spin Literary, if you are interested in writing a book and you want to talk to her, her information is down below. And I'm obviously going to tag my favorites, HarperCollins and Harper One, because I love them. They believed in me and they didn't have to, and they believed in me and my story. And I'm so excited to be working with them. So I will put all that information down below in the description box for you guys, as well as Julie Solomon's podcast, Influencer Podcast. If you're in this realm of work, then you should definitely check it out because I've learned a ton from her. So okay, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you've not already. And I will see you guys again in just a few days for another video. Bye.